Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to stay updated with all our latest content. Join us and never miss out on the excitement. The morning after the massacre at camp, Rick stares at the sunrise over Atlanta as he tries to reach Morgan on the walkie-talkie for the first time. He talks about the attack on the camp and warns Morgan to stay out of Atlanta, as the city now belongs to the dead. At the campsite, Andrea cradles Amy's body next to the RV. Lori tries to comfort her, but she has no success in convincing her to let them take Amy, as she has still not turned yet. Nearby, Daryl swings at dead walkers' heads with a pickaxe as Glenn and T-Dog throw bodies in a fire. Rick, Lori, and Shane discuss how to handle Andrea, who hasn't moved from Amy's side all night. Rick goes to talk to Andrea. She pulls a gun on him. Rick backs off, apologizing. Daryl tells Rick that he needs to deal with Amy, calling her a time bomb as she could turn at any moment. But Lori insists they leave Andrea alone. Morales and Daryl drag the body of a dead camper toward the fire, but Glenn stops them. He cries that they should bury their dead. Jackie and Jim pile up bodies. She notices blood on his shirt. He tries to convince her he just got some blood on him by moving bodies, but she manages to see that he has been bit. Jim pleads with her not to tell the group, but a terrified Jackie informs the group. Jim insists that he's fine, but he grabs a shovel to press the group away from him as they demand to see his stomach. T-Dog runs up behind him and grabs his arms as Daryl runs in and lifts his shirt, revealing a bite wound on his abdomen. The group is discussing what to do with Jim, but Rick refuses to kill him. Rick thinks the Center for Disease Control, roughly 25 miles away inside Atlanta, might be able to help, and he suggests relocating there. Shane thinks the Army base Fort Benning 100 miles in the opposite direction is a safer bet. Both places would provide food and shelter if up and running. Rick believes Fort Benning got overrun like every other military cordon they've seen. He says the CDC would be Jim's best chance, and points out that in the event of a nuclear disaster or a terrorist attack, they protect the CDC at all costs. Daryl heads toward Jim with his pickaxe and tries to take a swing, but Rick points his gun at Daryl's head. Shane steps between Daryl and Jim, agreeing with Rick, and Daryl throws down his pickaxe. Rick moves Jim inside the bedroom of the RV. Dale sits beside Andrea to pay his respects for Amy's death. He tells her about his wife's battle with cancer, how he dragged her to every specialist even though she'd accepted her fate. Her death left him feeling angry and cheated. Andrea smiles and pulls out the mermaid necklace, wrapped in pink tissue paper. Today would have been Amy's birthday. She tells Dale how guilty she feels for having missed so many of Amy's birthdays. She places the necklace on Amy's neck. Nearby, Daryl continues to swing the pick into dead walkers' skulls. He raises the axe over Ed's head, but Carol stops him, insisting she's the one who should do it, taking the axe from Daryl's hands. Sobbing, she swings it down on Ed's skull repeatedly, taking out years of abuse in this final act to ensure he'd never reanimate. Daryl watches in silence, cringing. Amy eventually reanimates as a walker. Andrea, still holding her in her hand, apologizes to Amy. She then shoots Amy in the head, putting her down for good. Daryl believes they should burn all the bodies, but Lori insists that they need time to mourn and bury their dead. Jim is hallucinating inside the RV, his bite bleeding as he sees terrifying visions of the dead. The survivors stage a funeral, and Andrea resists Dale's attempts to help her drag Amy's body into one of the graves. In the RV, Rick tells a feverish Jim they're going to get him help as Jim starts to cough blood into a bucket. Jim is delirious and asks Rick to watch the boat. Rick begins to wonder if saving Jim will be possible as he promises to watch the boat while Jim nods gratefully. Outside, Shane asks Lori to convince Rick that the CDC is a bad decision, cautioning her about choosing her marriage over people's safety. Shane tries backtracking, and Lori abruptly announces that they should follow Rick's plan. Shane's reaction seems to confirm to Rick that something went on between his wife and best friend while he was gone. Rick, Shane, and Dale depart to sweep the forest for walkers. Alone, Shane tries to convince Rick to change his mind about the CDC. But Rick insists they should go to the CDC, as they're interrupted by a sound in the bush and draw their guns and separate to investigate. As they each scan with their guns raised, Shane's aim lands on Rick. He holds it there for just a few seconds, glaring, his breath heavy. But he hears a sound and his focus breaks. He lowers the gun and then notices Dale's been watching him. Shane shrugs it off, musing that they need to get reflective vests for the woods. Back at camp, Shane announces that he thinks they should trust Rick's instincts, and those that agree will be leaving for the CDC in the morning. At dawn, Rick tries to reach Morgan to advise him of their new plan, telling him he needs him to be right about the CDC. He also adds that they will be leaving a map taped to a red car with their route drawn out for him and Dwayne to follow. As the group is preparing to leave, Shane is giving instructions on how to stay with the caravan when Morales announces that his family won't be joining the group. He states that they have family in Birmingham and want to be with their people. Rick hands Morales a .357 Magnum revolver with Shane's terse assumption that the rest of them will fare no better out there anyway, and they part ways. Carl and Sophia hug the Morales kids, Eliza and Louie, while Lori tearfully hugs Morales' wife, Miranda. Eliza gives her doll to Sophia and runs back to her family. The group leaves the campsite behind for good, Glenn with the map and Jim's fever worsening in the bedroom of the RV. On their way to the CDC, the RV's radiator hose bursts. While Shane and T-Dog drive ahead to find replacement parts, Rick checks on Jim, who is in agony. Jim knows he is not going to make it and tells the group to leave him behind. Rick suggests he's delirious, but Jim insists his head is clear. Outside, Dale advocates respecting Jim's wishes. Lori agrees, and the group carries Jim to a nearby tree. Jackie gives him a soft kiss on the cheek. The group departs, tearfully leaving him behind. Elsewhere, a video monitor crackles to life. An unshaven man, Dr. Jenner, speaks into the camera. It's been 194 days since the outbreak began, and 63 days since it went global. In a biohazard suit and with classical music playing, Jenner passes through an airlock into a laboratory. He opens a tissue sample labeled TS19 and begins an experiment. He takes a nap inside his safety suit while he waits for the sample to be ready for examination. Reaching for a beaker, he accidentally knocks a graduated cylinder of corrosive fluid on the tissue sample inside a Petri dish. An alarm sounds as a voice over a loudspeaker alerts Jenner to toxic quality air, and he runs to a decontamination chamber and disrobes. From the safety of the airlock, Jenner watches helplessly as the voice announces full decontamination in effect. As the lab and all of the remaining TS19 samples are engulfed in flames and automatic safety protocol. A despondent Jenner talks in the monitor. Sad that the test samples are gone, and he has no purpose, he decides to commit suicide. But first, he wants to get drunk. Rick's caravan approaches the CDC with the sun setting, where hundreds of bodies lay dead on the ground. The group quietly approaches the building, which is locked and shuttered. Inside, the proximity alarm alerts Jenner. Stunned, he watches the group's approach via security monitor. Outside, walkers begin to take notice of the survivors. Panicking, Shane suggests they can still turn around and head for Fort Benning. Andrea then points out that they're out of gas and they have no food, and would never make it. Lori demands a plan and Rick insists they'll figure something out as the sun sets. Jenner quietly mumbles to himself, telling them to leave. Rick catches sight of the security camera's movement and slams his fists against the metal shutters, screaming to be let in. As the walkers surround the group, the shutters open, shrouding the group in a bright light. See you in the next video.